Billy Eichner, you have two chances this year for Emmy nominations. For the last season of Parks and Recreation, where you had a recurring role, and also, of course, for your special edition of Billy on the Street with Michelle Obama, Big Bird, and special guest contestant Elena, who you've had on the show a few times before. How did the whole special come about?
Uh, well, how did the Michelle Obama segment come about? I guess through Funny or Die. They have worked. Funny or Die produces Billy on the Street. They've worked with the White House before. They did the Between Two Ferns video with the president last year, which won the Emmy in this category, coincidentally. And I think through Funny or Die, they became aware of Billy on the Street and my work and my videos and the show. And I think it was back in November when the First Lady's team reached out to me and said that they were fans and that the First Lady had seen my work, and she was interested in doing a video with a particular type of energy to promote this Eat Brighter campaign that she was working on in conjunction with Sesame Street, hence Big Bird. And it was very important to me that, of course, it was a huge honor and I wanted to do it immediately, but it was also important to me that it kept the style and the tone and the spirit of Billy on the Street. And I was really happy because I think we did that successfully. We got the message across about healthy eating for young kids, which is, of course, a huge part of the platform for the First Lady and always has been. And I think we also made a funny, very energetic, ridiculous, absurdly funny Billy on the Street video in the style of the show. And that's what happened. So we shot it. The conversation began in November. We shot it in February in Washington, D.C., and then we shot with Big Bird on the streets of New York, which is the second part of the video. And that's the story. And it was pretty great and pretty wild.
The Obamas have embraced, new media in a big way. As you mentioned, Barack Obama appeared on Between Two Ferns to promote, Affordable Care Act, and he's done the talk show circuit, and of course Michelle has as well. What do you think about how accessible, they've been in that way as sort of 21st century media figures?
Well, I think, he just did Mark Maron's podcast a few days ago. And I think the president has to stop slumming it on podcasts and get back to television where he belongs. No, I mean, I'm kidding, obviously. I think it's great. That is how young people, not even young, that's how 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings, and older, that's how people in general now get their information. I get a lot of my news from my NPR news app on my phone that I listen to every night before I go to bed. I mean, this is just the way of the world. And so, I think one thing that Obama has always done that I think is so smart is to meet the people where they are. And this is where we are, and I think it's great. The idea is to get the information across. If you're just going to do interviews on the CBS Evening News, that's great if you want to only reach out to people above a certain age. But if you want to reach out to young people and give them access to information whenever they want it, you can download Mark Maron's podcast right now, or you can do it 3 weeks from now. It'll always be there. It's very convenient for people. And that's the way we communicate. So I think it's really smart. And I think people really appreciate his accessibility. I think people in my generation, and certainly people in my generation who are his supporters, do.
As you mentioned, that Barack Obama episode of Between Two Ferns won the Emmy in this category that you're submitted in this year, which was best short format live action entertainment program.
Whatever the hell that is.
So many different kinds of TV. The Television Academy can't really keep up with naming them. It's so complicated. There's so many different little kinds of TV.
Totally, it's hard.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I think over the years, I think Michelle Obama might actually have the better track record at the Emmys between the two of them, because I remember it's been sort of this weird kind of anomaly that Barack Obama episodes have before last year have lost Emmys. It's been submitted for been on MythBusters and Colbert Report and The View, and they submitted him for Emmys and they all lost the Emmys. But Michelle Obama actually won the Ellen DeGeneres Show an Emmy a few years ago. So
and she was so wonderful on Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. I mean, so Michelle really set a precedent long ago with her work on TV.
Do you feel any pressure to keep her winning streak going?
Well, I'd love to do it. I think she was fantastic in this episode. She was so game. Her team told us afterwards they think it's the funniest thing she's ever done, and that it was the most free she ever felt. in terms of doing these comedy segments. And she had a great time, and I had a great time. It was an honor to be with her and Big Bird. And I think, again, whether we win or not, the thing that I'm most proud of is that we really kept the spirit of Billy on the Street in this video that, for obvious reasons, probably had more creative restrictions on it than other really insane things that I do on the street and the things that I say. And people really loved the video. So it didn't just stop at, oh, wow, he got the first lady in the video. Isn't that cool? It was a genuinely entertaining, really funny, unpredictable video. That's what I'm happy about. And yeah, I'd love to keep the streak alive. And we work really hard on Billy on the Street. We've been around for a while now. So, you know, it would be a nice honor just to be nominated. I know that's cheesy, but, you know, I'd love to just be in the room. I obviously got to be at the Emmys last year because we did a Billy on the Street segment, but I was not a nominee. I was a daytime Emmy nominee a few years ago, although Billy on the Street wasn't on in the daytime mostly. I don't know how that worked out, but I guess because it's a game show and that's where the game show category is. Anyway, I lost to the Cash Cab guy, and then that show got canceled. So be careful what you wish for, Ben Bailey. He's the Cash Cab host. Anyway.
I remember that year. It's sort of interesting that, you know, you were nominated the same year as him, and, you know, you're both, you know, coincidentally game shows that are sort of wandering the streets of New York. That might have actually even been an interesting crossover episode.
I'm okay without it. No. He's a lovely guy. I am totally kidding. And yeah, I mean, I think on the surface, Billy on the Street and Cash Cab have obvious similarities. If you watch the show, the two shows, they're very different in tone. But yeah, he really paved the way for street game shows in New York City. So I have nothing bad to say about him.
As you mentioned, you did the Billy on the Street segment for last year's Emmys with Seth Meyers, where you quiz people on, you know, the nominees and the snubs. You know, you're pretty savvy about pop culture. Is that something you actively follow every year?
I do. I've been following award shows, for better or worse, since I was a kid, and kind of watching them religiously. As I grew up, you know, I start to see things from an adult perspective. I'm in the thick of it in show business every day, whether it's Billy on the Street, Parks and Rec. I have a new show on Hulu. You know, I know more how these things work. So I don't have like the childlike innocent view of it that I once did, but I still love them. It was one of the best nights of my life to be at the Emmys last year and to be with Seth, and not only to be there, but to really do what I do, to do the Billy on the Street segment. And it got such a great reaction in the room. And I really think, professionally speaking, you know, you'll be able to sort of separate my career in terms of pre-Emmys and post-Emmys from last year in terms of the impact that it already had. And Seth was so generous and just, you know, wildly supportive. And yeah, it was pretty amazing.
You know, is there, you know, you following, you know, awards closely? Are there any shows that you're, you know, other than your own, of course, that you're rooting for, that you're kind of been paying attention to this past year that you hope get in?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, I'm a huge TV fan. There are so many great shows. It really, again, it sounds like a cliche, but I mean, I think the Emmys are more competitive than the Oscars at this point, simply because of the quality of the work that's being done, and the streaming shows and the cable shows, and there's so much. It's hard for me, even as an obsessive TV fan, to keep up with it. I know what's out there, but to actually sit down and watch it, I mean, when the hell am I going to watch Bloodline? You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm sure it's great. When am I going to watch it? It's on my list of things to do. But I can't imagine how people actually keep up with these shows. What shows do I love? Well, I was a recurring actor on Parks and Recreation for the final 2 seasons. I never felt that show fully got its due at the Emmys. It would be great to see Amy Poehler back one last time. And she's also producing my new Hulu show, Difficult People. She's a joy. So I'd love to see her there. And it would probably be the same category, and I'm not choosing a winner, but I'm also a huge fan of The Comeback, a show on HBO. And I really think Lisa Kudrow, I think she got nominated like 10 years ago when it was on the first time. But I mean, if Lisa Kudrow doesn't get nominated for The Comeback, then really the whole thing is bullshit, because it really is one of the greatest performances on TV ever that I've ever seen in any genre. And I know a lot of people feel that way. And I know she's won Emmys before, but I mean, she's incredible.
Yeah, I think though she actually only has one. It feels like she might be one of those people who feels like she has more than she does. Because I know she won once for Friends, but I don't know
Yeah.
if she has more than that.
Yes. Yeah. I can't quite remember. I know she was nominated a lot, is what I mean. But her work on the comeback is really on another level, I think.
For Billy on the Street in general, you ask these kinds of outlandish questions, these pop culture questions, and in this episode you asked whether Ariana Grande is better than eating a carrot. You had Michelle Obama push you in a shopping cart while you did Gwyneth Paltrow's acceptance speech.
Obviously.
How did you prepare material for this, and was it different from how you usually prepare for the show?
Well, again, it was really important to me to keep the spirit of Billy on the Street. I mean, having someone push me in a shopping cart while I read Gwyneth Paltrow's Shakespeare in Love Oscar acceptance speech is something that I might do on any episode. And I just thought it would really ratchet up the absurdity to have the current First Lady of the United States do this. And I'm just so happy that she was game. How did I prepare for it? It is the First Lady of the United States, and it's Big Bird. And honestly, it was just as hard to prepare for Big Bird because according to the Sesame Street people, who were lovely and incredibly cooperative, Big Bird is technically a child. So you'd have to keep that in mind. The First Lady is the First Lady of the United States. You have to keep that in mind. You can't just ask her any old thing. But in preparing the questions and the things that I wanted her to do in the segment, I thought as long as we were staying on the right side of the line, and weren't crossing any lines in terms of things getting too irreverent or too edgy, but still feeling spontaneous and still feeling like things that only I could get her to do, and things she would only be asked to do on Billy on the Street, like dance with Big Bird while I sing Aerosmith's Don't Want to Miss a Thing. Those are very Billy on the Street types of things to do. And so I did keep, one half of my mind, I had to remember she's the First Lady and that Big Bird is a child. But on the other half, I had to balance that out with, having it not feel like a totally innocuous, generic, watered down Billy on the Street episode. And I don't think it did. And I was really happy about that.
You also brought on to this episode, Elena, who is a contestant you featured on the show before, and she actually wrote you a letter after her first appearance, and she's been back, a number of times. At what point did you decide, to bring her into this special?
Elena is a star. Elena is just a random woman like so many other people that I once ran into when we were shooting Billy on the Street. Sometimes people don't believe me, but unlike some other shows like this, which we may have mentioned earlier in this video, but I won't mention again, Cash Cab, a lot of these shows do casting in advance. And sometimes the interactions on Billy on the Street, these people I run into are so funny that people just assume that it's fake, or that we've cast these people in advance or told them to behave in this way. And I wish that were the case. It would make my life a lot easier, but it's not. We just hit the street, and whoever I run into, and they're not prepared for me at all. And Elena was just one of those people, but she is so funny, and she's not trying to be funny, and it's just who she is. She's this quintessential New Yorker with this very acerbic, uniquely, New York attitude. I can't explain it any other way. Like, Elena just doesn't give a crap, and she's not affected by the cameras. So we had a segment with her the first time when I ran into her. Then the season after that, I brought her back to play against Lena Dunham, because I thought they were both these like iconic New York attitudes, but very different, playing against each other. And then I thought, again, in an attempt to preserve the spirit of Billy on the Street, we couldn't bring the First Lady on the street for obvious security reasons, but I wanted to have her interact with a real person that didn't know they were about to meet Michelle Obama and that she didn't know. And I thought, why not bring Elena down? Because Elena tends to be unfazed, even in the face of meeting famous people. Now, of course, it's the First Lady, and she has a very genuine reaction to that, emotional reaction. But it's shockingly fast how Elena just tears right into the game a few seconds later in her full Elena glory. And so I thought it was a good way of preserving the spirit of the show, and she's just really, really funny. And I love bringing Elena and the First Lady together. It was like the best of both worlds.
Doing the show, as you usually do in New York, and meeting these, strangers on the street, basically, New Yorkers have sort of a reputation, not always fair, I don't think, for being sort of rude or impatient. But so you ever worry about, what reactions you'll get from some people? Have you ever had a problem?
Well, some people are friendlier than others. And it's New York. We've had a handful of people who got really upset over the years, but nothing too bad. It never came to blows or anything like that. But what I love about the show is that it shows you real New Yorkers in all of their glory. They're friendly. They're not so friendly. They know about pop culture. They don't give a shit about pop culture. You really get a wide variety of perspectives: young, old, gay, straight, white, black. People who watch my videos on YouTube that we put on YouTube from the TV show, who are watching on YouTube in other countries, they often in the YouTube comments will comment about how diverse the people on the show are. And I grew up in New York, so I'm desensitized to that sort of a thing. I went to high school on the subway, so diversity is it's just what I'm used to since I was a child. But I forget how shocking that is to other people, to see such a wide variety of different types of people in one 22-minute episode of a show, because that's what you get on the streets of Manhattan. And so I'm always prepared for people to be angry. And, there's something funny about that too. I like when someone tells me to fuck off. If I've asked them a question about, Jamie Presley's Emmy history or something that I think they should know, but that they don't know. And then oftentimes I'm shocked that people will stand there for 20 minutes and talk to me about what they think of, the Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett mashup that we're all enduring. So I think that, I never know what I'm going to get. And that's what's fun about the show.
Recently, a couple months ago, you also did a Billy on the Street, segment with David Letterman. What was it like being part of, sort of his farewell in that way during his last few months?
That was mind-boggling to me. I mean, it really made me emotional. Not on the video, but thinking about it. I grew up watching Letterman. I was an only. I have an older half brother. Not to get into this on Gold Derby, but I was raised mainly as an only child, and pop culture was my friend. I loved pop culture. TV was my friend. I remember from way too young of an age than I probably should have been, my parents going to bed, and I don't know how old I was, 9, 10 years old. I would watch Johnny Carson, and then some nights, because I'm like a nocturnal person, I would watch Letterman by myself in my room on a tiny TV. And on the last episode of Letterman, when they did that insane, amazing montage at the end, and they showed the monkey cam, the late night monkey cam, which was a bit he did in the 80s, which was just a camera strapped to a monkey's back. I hadn't thought about that in so long, but the second I saw it, it brought me right back to my childhood. And I almost started crying. I mean, because I just remember watching the late night monkey and thinking that was so funny. And Letterman really created the types of segments that I do. I do a different spin on it, but he loved New Yorkers, and his show always embraced this New York attitude. And, in talking to, Mujibur and Sirajul and all the characters he found that were in his neighborhood, my show borrows from that, whether I was doing it consciously or not. I guess I was doing it subconsciously in a way. But I worship him. To do his show at all was insane. And to get him on the street with me, I don't know how that happened. It was really amazing. And just to get to, I don't think David Letterman just casually walks around Manhattan a lot. So to walk around with him for 2 hours, just chatting with him in between shooting and talking about his life, and it was really amazing. And I don't know. It's incredible to have him as a fan. That's a high compliment.
This year, you also, said farewell to your recurring role on Parks and Recreation, as Craig. You joined that show in 2013, so still, fairly late in the show's run. What was it like joining, the cast and crew at that point? Had you been a fan before then?
I was a huge fan. Great show. I never in a million years thought I would be on the show. They called me to do 1 or 2 episodes. And just the thought of doing 1 or 2 episodes, I was shocked and thrilled. And also very, very nervous, because they're such a well-oiled machine at that point. They all know each other. I knew Amy Poehler a little bit. She had done Billy on the Street a couple of times, but I didn't know any of the other actors personally. And to have stuck around and done 2 seasons of the show and been in the finale, I never would have guessed that would have happened. They could not have been lovelier. I was so nervous the first day at Parks and Rec. I had never done a scripted sitcom before. And they're all so relaxed in their roles, and they're such good actors on that show. It's not a hack show by any means, you know. They're really quality performers who know what they're doing, and you know, they really welcome me. They always treated me as if I'd been around the whole time. There were some really big Billy on the Street fans amongst the writers and producers and actors on that show, so I think it helped. They kind of had some idea who I was. I think they were happy to find out I was a relatively normal person off camera. And Craig was an insane character to play. Obviously borrowed a lot from the Billy on the Street persona, but in a much different environment. Even crazier than Billy on the Street in certain ways. And I'm still like such good friends with. I became really good friends with a lot of the actors on that show. We just announced Chris Pratt will be a guest on the next season of Billy on the Street. Which is very cool. Lovely, funny, down-to-earth guy. Nick Offerman's been on Billy on the Street. Amy's been on Billy on the Street. You know, Nick has a new book he just sent me. I really, Adam Scott, I mean, they're really Retta. They're all incredible. So it was fantastic. What can you say?
You know, the series finale episode flashed forward to the futures of some of the characters, including your own. You know, what were the emotions like on set for the cast and crew? You know, shooting the finale.
It was very moving. You know, they're a very elegant group. You know, a lot of people said about Parks and Rec, it's the friendliest set in television. I don't have much experience. You know, Billy on the Street, we don't have a set. I'm out on the streets of New York every day. So, but now having been there, I see what people mean. It was a very relaxed set. No divas at all, no assholes, a ton of mutual respect. And I can't claim to have the same emotional connection to it as people who'd been doing it for 7 years. I only joined in the second to last season, but it was very emotional. I was there on the very last day of shooting. I was thrilled to be in the finale that they finished off Craig's character. Craig got married to Typhoon. You know, it's a really lovely group. I'm sure it was very, very difficult to say goodbye to that. I'm sure in one way, you know, they're actors. They want to play other roles. They're ready to move on. But, I mean, that's a great job with great people. So, yeah, it was very emotional, a lot of crying. And I was on my phone the whole time texting, so I missed a lot of it. But, no, fantastic group of people and a very rare group, I think.
Well, I want to, thank you for talking to me today, and congratulations on talking to Big Bird and Michelle Obama and Parks and Recreation and all that, and best of luck at the Emmys this year.
Thank you, and I'll be on Gold Derby every minute until the Emmys in September.
well, fingers crossed. I think you've got a good shot with Michelle Obama.
All right, thanks so much.